Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I'm finally resuming my little coffee card series. It's been over 3 months since the last one. I've just been sidetracked with the moving and life and just everything. And I've had this is the Penny Black Saying a Latte stamp set that I've had sitting front and center on my desk for even during the move. And I keep wanting to use it, so I finally pulled it out last night and I inked it up with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and I stamped it onto some Bristol smooth cardstock. And I decided to color in this image with my Polychromos pencils, which I'd shown more recently I did kind of a first impression unboxing video, and then I'd done a card video. And I'm doing the same thing this time. I'm not using blending spirits. I have had people ask me about that, like if you can use Gamsol, aka artist grade odorless mineral spirits with these pencils, and you totally can. I just wasn't in the mood. I thought it would be just fun to just sit and color and experiment a little bit more with layering colors a bit. I've super sped this up. This is like eight times faster than what it took. It took me maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, something. I just sat and colored. I don't time myself, and I just get asked a lot, so I looked at the video footage when I was editing here, and that's roughly what it took me. So I just started with a light hand and just kind of layered the colors, and I started with the skin because that's generally when I'm coloring in images of people. I always start with the skin first because for me, I find that to be the most difficult. And then I go in and finish the rest of the image. So I usually do skin, then hair, then, all the rest of the image. So I didn't keep track of specifically what colored pencils I had used. One, because I was just in the zone, and two, I had to put them all back like exactly where they were. And because I was in the zone, I didn't bother like actually writing down each color. So apologies for that. But yeah, colored pencils, you can pretty much use any colors you want. And it just kind of depends on what color you're going for, what skin tone, what hair color, that sort of thing. So I decided to do a lighter skin tone, and then I used like 4 different shades of brown to do the hair. And yeah, like I said, a light hand. I wasn't pressing really hard. I know the Polychromos are fabulous for like blending the colors and creating really like a lot of depth and vibrancy and all that. This is literally only my second attempt with these. So as I do more and more and get more comfortable with them, I'm sure I'll be doing more and more differences with pressure and all that. But anyway, I colored her in and decided to stay somewhat similar actually to the stamped image on the packaging she had like kind of a lighter blue pajama top on. So I just intensified the blue and went a little bit darker, and then made her pajama bottoms black because that's more like what I would wear. And then the coffee cup, I decided to color it yellow just because yellow pops so nicely against blue. So layered the yellow, and then I couldn't resist coloring her fingernails like this kind of bright fuchsia style of color, just because in my big full set of the Polychromos, there's such vibrant like purples in that, which are fabulous. So I actually had a hard time deciding what nail color to give her, so I colored it similar to what I would wear. So once I was done coloring in the whole image, I decided to add some grays just around the outside, just to kind of give it a little bit more shading, a little bit more depth. So I did kind of a medium gray and then a lighter gray, and then I went in very lightly with a light hand with a very pale, warmer gray. And I didn't blend it out as well as I'd like. And I did think about at this point to actually use some odorless mineral spirits, but instead, because I didn't want to end up picking up any of the color from the actual image, I just used an eraser. And this time this is the Tombow sand eraser, and I've shown this in a couple videos as well. It has a sandy grit to it, which is actually meant for colored pencils. So I used a light hand when I was erasing too, because I didn't want to end up disturbing the surface of the paper. So you could use just a regular eraser for something like this, but I was actually kind of impressed with how this was working. So I just went around the image just to help kind of soften that shading I'd created and to blend it just a little bit and removed any of the little bit of harshness. It wasn't too much. So did all that, and then I pulled out the Simon Says Stamp Basic Rectangles die set. I've been using this set all the time lately. So I die cut the main image with one of the rectangles, and then I die cut some pattern paper. This is from the My Favorite Things Dots and Stripes Fresh Pack, and I used the largest die on the pattern paper. And then I grabbed a piece of vellum for my sentiment, and I treated it with some anti-static powder tool first. and then got the sentiment lined up on my acrylic block. And the sentiment comes with this stamped image. It comes with 2 sentiments and then the image. And so I'm inking up this main sentiment with the Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink, and then stamping that along this top edge of the vellum here. And then I'm going to emboss that with some detail white embossing powder. And when embossing on vellum, I like to get my heat tool going first, let it heat up for a few seconds to get good and hot. And then that's one thing I absolutely love about vellum is embossing powder melts really, really quickly in vellum. So you heat it until it just melts and then remove the heat tool away from it, because vellum can warp really quickly, really easily. So once I had it all melted, I trimmed that down really well with my paper trimmer. And then I actually had a piece of gray cardstock in my stash that I did not die cut. It was already that size and it had been die cut from a previous project, and it worked perfectly to frame the main image. So I pulled that out and it worked, and I was going to adhere this as is, like right now, but I was like, I wanted to pull in just a little bit more yellow. So I grabbed a piece, this is my favorite thing, Sunshine cardstock, which is really bright yellow. And I adhered this right over it so there'd just be just the teeniest bit of a border, because I didn't want it to be, you know, crazy amount of yellow, but just that little bit. So I adhered it first and then just used my paper trimmer to trim off the excess. And that's where I love this paper trimmer, because I used the wire to kind of make sure I was trimming off just enough, not too much. So I've got that nice, even, very fine little border of yellow all the way around. And then I adhered that flat to the pattern paper. And then I lined up my sentiment where I wanted to place it. And that's why I chose vellum, because, you know, I spent all that time and effort coloring. I didn't want it to conceal all that coloring. So you can still see the color and the texture through the vellum. So line that up really well. And I just used my Teflon bone folder to press a crease on either side so that it folded over straight and nicely and lined up perfectly. And then just use some Scotch tape to adhere that to the back of the pattern paper here. And then flip that back over. And then for my embellishment, I just decided to use some enamel dots. And these are all from Doodlebug. So I had some Lily White, some Bumblebee, and some Blue Jean. There's no gray. I was going to use gray enamel dots instead of white, but there actually aren't any in the in the Doodlebug line. So I was like, oh, for all these years of using Doodlebug, I never noticed that. So anywho, I added my few little enamel dots, and then my card base is just heavyweight white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5 1/2 just using my paper trimmer and the groove for the cutting blade and my Teflon bone folder. So scored that at 5 1/2, so it's a top folding A2 size card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then applied adhesive to the back of the pattern paper there and adhered that to the card base. And then for the inside, I just kept it simple and stamped the last little sentiment that comes with the set. So yeah, it says love you more than coffee, and then on the inside, and that's saying a latte. I think that's just cute. So I pulled out my Simon Says stamp. This is slate ink, and it's a deep, really deep gray. So inked up the sentiment with that and stamped it on the inside of the card, and that finished off my card. So I will have a link below the video to my blog post where I'll have the pictures as well as picture links in the blog post. All that info is in the description box directly below the video. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out below. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing, for thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you guys, I'm sure, very, very soon in another video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.